There's my peeps. Oh, hello. There's everybody. Coming on in. Laura and Lori. That's almost a tongue twister if I want it to be. Hello, lovely practitioners. Welcome to Training Tuesday. Hello. Hello, Lori. Hello, Laura. So lovely to see you. Hi, loves. Hi. Happy Tuesday. Happy Training Tuesday. All right. So I could just dive into conversation with you, and then I was like, oh wait, yes, that's right. We're streaming live on YouTube. I should introduce myself. For those who are not here seeing me face to face. Hi everybody, welcome. Even if you're watching on the replay, I'm so delighted that you're here. I especially love it when people are live. See, I get super like fluttery and distracted when I see live people because I love connection, as I know you do too. That's why we're all people. That's why what we do for a living is we love connecting with people. So welcome. I'm happy that you're here live or on the replay. Hi, I'm Gina Schatz. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the developer of the Schatz method, which is a method of working with method for practitioners to work with clients in both movement and manual practices. And the key is to resolve pain at the genesis. And I know a lot of other places tell you that that's what they're doing. And I'm not here to debunk any of them. I'm just here to tell you what I do and what I know works. I've been at this for a long time. I know you can't tell, because I just got my hair did. I know you can't tell how long I've been at it, but I have been at it for, it'll be 30 years next month. So I've been at the rodeo for a while. So I've got a little bit of traction under my belt, and I know that this method works. So that's what I'm here to share. Like, what did I learn along the way? What do I know works? And just offer you guys some shortcuts. And so that's what Training Tuesday is about, to offer you some shortcuts so you don't have to do all the 30 years of laboring. Not that it was all a labor, most of it was fun. And also to answer some questions. That's what we're here for me to pour into you and hear what's on your mind and what's coming up for you. The last 2 weeks have been super fun for me, and we've gone a little bit off format even because it's just been so live and real. And so I just want to let all of us know, whether you're here live again or watching on the replay, that whatever you're here for is good. Like, whatever you're here for is good. I did hear from several others of you that the hour-long format does work. Surprising, because I just heard somebody say, one of my business coaches say today, look, no one can get to know you if you go on for 10 minutes. I'm like, I'm at 60 minutes. So, but it's not all about me, of course. So yeah, we want to be succinct and clear and crisp, and that's part of our messaging. It's one of the things that we talk about actually in the mastery program about messaging. So if you are up to something big like body, and you're up to navigating someone's discomfort because they've had pain and chronic compensations for a while, we want to be able to message them in a way that lands the point clearly, where we sound compassionate and an authority, and we're moving them to the next place instead of just reviewing all of the details, right? Or spinning because we're not sure what to do next. So whatever it is that you're here for is great with me. I know that some of you are here looking for new ways to think about working with clients. You've tried a couple things and they didn't work. I know, Laura, you and I have talked about like the Groundhog's Day thing. You know, I'm big on that, meaning I'm big on eroding the Groundhog's Day. I don't really want us to keep doing rinse and repeat. I think it's boring personally, but mostly we're here for bigger things. We're an evolving species. We're constantly evolving and moving towards the next greatest creation, and we're limitless. So if we find that in our work, we're repeating ourselves over and over again, we're actually holding ourselves back. And when we hold ourselves back, then we start to get dull. And when we start to get dull, we start to doubt. And when we start to doubt, then we think maybe we should just jump ship. That's the wrong direction. And yes, I'm judging that. That is the wrong direction. We want to be inspired and forward moving and evolving in our own growth, our own potential, and in the results that we create with our clients. So if you're here looking for new ways to do that, awesome. I recommend doing that frequently and on the regular so that you don't create the doldrums, right? So be responsible for yourself enough to keep yourself out of the doldrum space. And I know that some of you are here to look for tools to resolve functional discrepancies. I'm all about functional discrepancies. In fact, I was listening to a training this morning, and the message was, you know, whatever your pain is your purpose. And I never understood that comment before. Like, I get it. That's like a good coaching shtick to deal with. But I never really understood it before. And the training this morning was a new delivery. And it was, whatever the thing is that you're the most passionate about, that when you see it in the world, you're like, I feel like I might even be inappropriate right now because I got to do something about the thing that's in front of me, whether it's relationship issues or health issues, or in our case, those of us who are meeting here in a community, functional discrepancies. I mean, I have stopped people on the streets in New York City. That's not a place where you do that typically, but I was like, oh, her ankle, I just saw this thing happen. You know, I've told this story before, and you kind of go after it. That is what I believe now is pain is your purpose means. Like the thing that I can't stop myself from reacting to, even internally, that's our purpose. If that's happening for you around functional discrepancies, my friends, you are in the right place. And I'm so glad to share space with you. And my idea on that is that there isn't a single tool that is the solution. If there were, we would have all had that training by now, right? 30 years in the making, tons of CEs, more than I can count. There isn't one tool because we're not a one size fits all. So what matters to me as I pour into you is, how do I get you to, like that sounds manipulative. My intention for you as I pour into you is to support your strategic thinking so that you can see the bigger picture of what's occurring with your client while you're simultaneously holding the picture of the way they're designed, and then have enough knowledge to grab the tool that is applicable for the moment. There isn't just a one size fits all magic tool. And I think that we get a little doubting, I think, when we take lots of workshops. Like a workshop is typically, I teach workshops, I know this. A workshop is typically a topic. So it's bookended into whatever the hours are for the workshop that's available, and whatever hours are available, that's what gets filled with that particular topic. Doesn't even necessarily mean that the whole tool has been shared with you or the whole topic has been able to be discovered, because there's a limitless amount of information going on in here. So when we start to cram in a whole bunch of workshops and we still don't have the answer, or we're running Groundhog's Day still, we can start to doubt ourselves. And I'm here to appeal to you that that's not where that's coming from. The disconnect is not coming from your lack of anything. It's because we filled our schedule with workshops. One of the practitioners in my graduate, actually from my mastery practitioner training program, was on a commitment at the beginning of the year to every month take a new workshop. And by the end of the year, she was very full of knowledge and confusion. And we did a lot to unpack that, and then find a way to take the information she had learned, because it's valuable. It's not, again, I'm not throwing workshops under the bus, but where to place that information is important. And you have to have a whole picture for that, much more than what a weekend can offer you. And I talk fast and I teach quick, and there still needs to be more time than that. So that's where I am with tools. We can absolutely talk about them. We have talked about tools when we've met here on Training Tuesdays, but there's a bigger message behind tools that matters to me, and that you'll often hear me talking to if you haven't heard me speak before. Also, most of you, and I would say all, but only most of you have shared this with me. Most of you and all of you are here for confidence boosting. And yes, we get to be confident about what we do, for sure. And it's super easy to tell ourselves a story that we're less than, not enough. And I want to just presence that into that conversation is actually the flip side of we are an evolving being. So when you think to yourself, I'm not enough, I don't know enough, what you're really saying is, I'm an evolving being and I will never know all there is to know, which still makes me badass. But you can frame it in a way that makes you less than, and then take yourself out of the game quickly. Why do that? Don't do that. That doesn't work. There's people who need you. And I've said this over and over again. There's more people who need us and the skill that we have than there are those of us to serve. And we have a big community. Our industry is huge, and it's not all the people, which means there's more that need us than there are those of us to serve. Us taking ourselves out of the game by some twisted confidence story doesn't work. It doesn't work. That said, there is realness in building confidence. It's a two-way formula. You guys have heard me say this. Some of you have been with me for a bit. Competence is what builds confidence, which means, yes, you get to have tons of knowledge, tons and tons of knowledge, and tons of implementing of that knowledge into skill building. It's competence is those two things. It's knowledge and skill. So in the mastery program, for example, there's some of us who like to, at the halfway mark, just kind of hang out, right? Like gathering data. That doesn't build confidence. So we're designed in the program to actually implement that. And that can really make you feel uncomfortable. Like, oh my gosh, I went to this weekend workshop and I don't feel like I know enough, or I'm in this year-long program and I don't think that I know enough. Cool. You won't know enough because you'll never know all of it. It's physically in this lifetime impossible. Just accept that as an is and implement what you do know. Implement what you do know. Otherwise, you're holding yourself back. And if you hold yourself back, you will continue to reach for confidence and never feel it. Be confident with what you know and be vulnerable enough to share what you don't know, and then courageous enough to go fill in those gaps, meaning that's when you go back for more knowledge. Don't just be a smarty pants at the end of the day without any real results under your belt, because you'll think that you're a fraud and you're not. You just haven't implemented what you know. There's a difference there. It's a difference there. Okay. And there's also, I know some of you who are like, I know there's something more for me. I'm searching for it. I'm I spying you, Gina. I'm going to listen to you for a while and see if I actually jive with what you're saying. I'm here for it. I would love for you to know who your next educator is, who your next trainer is. And if it's me, I'm honored. Absolutely. And I take that very seriously. And if not, and you're looking for something different, that's good. When you know what you don't know, you know what you do know. You know, when you know what you don't want, you know what you do want, is what I meant to say. So if I'm not your next trainer, totally cool, but go find one, because none of us has all the answers. I just shared with you, I was in a training this morning. I'm constantly in training myself. So, and do I think like, oh, well, if I'm in training, maybe I'm not good enough to actually teach a method for other practitioners? Hogwash. I'm absolutely qualified to teach what I developed to other practitioners. And I'm human enough to recognize that I'm not going to know it all in this lifetime. So I better hurry. I better keep steeping myself like a tea bag and get more knowledge so that I can train more people and do better work for the clients that I serve. Absolutely. So we're all in it, and whatever step you're in, whatever stage you're in is perfect. Just know that. Allow yourself to be where you are, be in the step that you're in, and strive for the step where you're going, and be courageous enough to go there. Okay. So that's my share for today. A little bit of coaching on who's who and what's what and how I can serve you. I love that you are all here. It warms my heart. I know so many of you send me notes each week, like, I heard you on the replay say blah, blah, blah. And I love that that is what's happening for you. Some of you have shared with me that you listen to these on your drive time and your commute time, which just warms my heart. I don't know about you, but I like to listen to the radio when I'm driving. So I like to sing really loud and my speakers are good in my car. But hey, if I'm what's in your ears when you're drive time, I'm honored. I don't take that lightly whatsoever. So wherever you are hearing this information and wherever you're taking it in, it works for me. And it's my delight to serve you. So thank you for being here. Thank you for continuing to ride the ride with me and serve your clients with such regard. They're really lucky to have you, I believe, fully from all the depths of my being down to my tippy toes. And speaking of, I'd love to turn the tables over to you. What questions do you guys have today? Do you have client questions for me today? Do you have questions on what's coming up in your training? Did you just recently take a workshop and you're like, it didn't really land with me. How do I use this tool, Gina? Or anything else? What's on your mind today? I would love to support you in knowing exactly what's coming up for you. Any questions? Lori, Laura? I know there's a couple others of you who came in too. Let me make sure I say hello, William. It's nice to have you here. I don't know who 973 is because it's just your phone number, but you're welcome to be here as well. And if either of you who aren't on video would prefer to just chat your question, type your question in the chat, I will happily read questions from the chat. It's easier for me to have a conversation with someone. I'm just going to be completely honest about that. So if you want to just come off mic, you're welcome to do that. And I get it. Some of you have said, look, I can't. I'm in my studio with clients in the next room and I don't want anyone to overhear me. We don't have a lot of sound control. I get that. Or maybe it's too loud where you are. I've heard people say that as well. But certainly do let me know how I can support you. What are your questions that are coming up for you today? What client questions do you have? What anatomy questions do you have? Functional anatomy, anything coming up for you? No, no questions.
I have lots of questions. I'm just not entirely sure where to start. That's where I'm trying to formulate. I'm a bit all over the place with my questions. I come back to what you said about workshops, right? In the midst of your muscles and movement, right? And I'm gobbling up all the information, and I'm realizing that with the muscles, like there's some stuff that I retain. Of course, there's some things that I don't. And I get this little flutter of like, I can't remember all the muscles in the rotator cuff. And I start to get into that. And I think it's what you said about skill building, and like I want to gobble it all up, and I am, and I also feel like I'm getting down the rabbit hole a little bit on the thing, or hung up on what I can't remember, even though there's a lot that I do remember. I don't know if that goes back to like your one student that was like, I'm going to take a workshop every day for each month. Am I overloading? Am I, all of these kind of questions are going through my head with workshop.
Such a great question, Lori. So first of all, I want to acknowledge you for being immersed in muscles and movement as a solo path, because it's a pretty dense course. It's amazing. I love it. And you know that you were the inspiration for that course.
Oh,
way back when. Do you remember?
I do not, but lovely.
You were the inspiration for that course. Yes, because this is a general statement. What you shared with me turned the light bulb on for me about practitioners in our industry, whether we're movement or manual practitioners. We tend to not have enough anatomy, specifically muscles, and even for massage therapists who know all the muscles, how they move.
Right.
Is another category of knowing muscles. So it's one thing to have them all memorized. It's another thing to know all their origins and insertions, and that's a heavy load to do. And then it's another chapter to recognize what they do when they move. And the reason that's important for us, whether we're manual or movement practitioners, is because we generate pain and discomfort in the body from movement or lack of movement. So we have to know how the muscles move. Just knowing the muscles is like step 2. And we need step 3. There's 3 steps. So you, in my connection with you, Lori, you got me to realize like, oh my gosh, it was an assumption that everybody knew what they needed to know to be able to problem solve. And so I created that course, and we've got it recorded now. And, all the practitioners in the mastery training program take that course. And some of the practitioners who take that course are not in the mastery program, and they are climbing that hill solo. And it's doable. There's interactive tools, and you're absolutely qualified to take that course on your own. And it's a big one. So I want to acknowledge you for taking that big course on your own. That's huge, amazing. And so I'm hoping that context offers already a little bit of relief for you when you're making it so hard, because it is a big piece. It's a big piece. It's a big course. It's dense. Hopefully you've seen this along the way, Lori, that while it was recorded live, there was a wide range of responses to the folks who were there live when the course was recorded, and not everybody had a joyride.
Right. Yeah, no, I did acknowledge that. And I was like, oh, I feel like I'm part of it, when the folks are like, I don't know what I just learned. I was like, preach.
Exactly.
And folks that were like, when we do the little quizzes, and I'm like, oh, I did remember that. Then it's like, oh, yay. So it's a bit of this roller coaster. Like, I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm so know what I'm doing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'm glad that you got to recognize that it wasn't just you. That's one of the reasons why that format really works, to see people in real process going through it. It's not staged by any means. And you take the quizzes. Like I said, there's interactive tools. You took the quiz and you're like, oh, I do know some. And okay, I get to review on some other things. And you called it, Lori. So knowing, even if you aced all the quizzes, even if you remembered all the details, which is, by the way, physiologically impossible first time through. It's impossible for you to have that expectation of yourself and actually be real about it. It's not the way we're wired. But even if you memorized all of those details and you aced all of the quizzes, there's still the second half of the equation, which is you get to implement it. So knowledge and skill is competence, and competence is what builds confidence. So being completely clear on all the details still doesn't give us enough. We've got to actually do something with it. And my experience is that when I'm doing something with it, that's when it starts to click. So the reverse is also true. I can know what I know, but unless I've implemented it, I don't really know it. Right? So sometimes I'll sort of like, I think I call it like I bank the knowledge. Like I heard it, I got it, it made sense to me. I even noticed my quiz results said that I got it. There's no context to do anything with it. So I just bank it. And then the next time a client comes in with a rotator cuff issue, I'm like, I got something in the bank. I might need to pull it out. I might need to consult with my resources. I may need to try it a couple different ways, but I banked the knowledge and now I'm implementing it. Thank you, client, for showing up with this thing that I get to actually implement. And then when those two things come together, it clicks. So does that make sense to you, Lori?
It does. And I do see that because especially with joint action, like that's really landing with me. And then I kind of backpedal out of, I kind of reverse engineer out of that. Okay, that's the joint. And then that's the muscle. And I can't quite remember that one, but I know it's this one. So it is like clicking. It is coming together. I think we're like in a big picture, like when I'm teaching, it comes together like that. I think it's probably because I kind of control what I'm teaching or what I'm seeing, and then like a client will come in and they're like, oh, I've got this kind of discomfort, and I can get to a certain point with it, and then I'm like, and I don't know quite what to do. And I think that's just next level, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's just next level of like, oh, okay, I know what I know and I know what I don't know. And yeah.
Yeah, I have something I want to share with you about that. You brought up some really great points. When we're the authority in the room, when we're leading a class or we're leading a client, if it's a one-on-one session, we tend to go with what we know. Why wouldn't we? Like, of course you'd go with what you know. That's how you know you could create results for them. Mm-hmm. And when we're in a learning environment, it hopefully is what you don't know. Otherwise, it's a waste of your resources, time and money. You're paying for stuff that you're like, this is getting me nowhere. It's like moving the needle at all. So you really do want something to be riveting, to be like, wow, what? Holy smoke. And so being able to hold both the expert and the beginner level within you is so important, because we're always both. Mm-hmm. We're always both. We're always the expert and the beginner. And if we tend to gravitate towards our comfort zone, then we stay expert, right. And stay is the word. We stay and then we're stagnant. And if we've done that for a really long time, it could feel uncomfortable jumping back into the dichotomy of both beginner and expert level. Right. So I don't know if that's what's happening for you, but I know that it happens. Mm-hmm. And so what I try to do for me is I organize my life, my weeks, to have equal access to both. Mm-hmm. Where I'm pouring into my practitioners, the method that I developed, it's literally in my bones. I know this stuff backwards and forwards. And I'm in another training where I'm taking copious notes and stopping the recording and hitting rewind and going, what the hell was that? And then, percolating on that during the day to try to implement it. Yeah. So maybe, I don't know if this is happening for you, but if it's not, then somebody else gets to hear it. Bridging that distance between the moments that you spend as an expert and the moments that you allow yourself to be the beginner. Yeah. And then just allowing is the key. Like allowing both. There's the reverse happens too, where we don't even allow ourselves to be the expert. We think that we're the beginner the whole time, even though we do have 30 years of experience. I ran that stupid racket for a while too. I can't possibly know enough. Okay, well, whatever. So that's just selfish. So I got to get out of my own way and just be in service. So we can hold ourselves on either end of that spectrum for, for a while. And, what would it feel like instead if you just allowed yourself to know what you know, allowed yourself to not know some stuff, which is going to be the life's path while the body is your muse.
Right.
And then allowed yourself to implement and allowed yourself to have questions. Like, what if you allowed all of that at the same time? What could you free up in yourself?
Yeah, it sounds like there's 4 components. And I think I certainly allow myself to step into the expert kind of role. I allow myself to step into beginner. It's there were the other 2, the kind of the curiosity. And the thing about being the expert in one field is that, you have people coming to you with like, well, what about X, Y, and Z? And then what about this? And that's where I can tend to get into beginner, and that the beginner part is where I get to beef it up for support of my folks that are asking me for more.
What do you mean someone comes in and then it
well, I'll be talking about, say, I don't know, shoulder flexion or really digging deep into that, and they're like, oh, well, I've got this going on with my shoulder. And then I was like, oh, okay, so do you see what I mean? Like when I start to dive deep into anatomy and teach that way, then folks come up with like, oh, I've got this going on. What do you suggest? And that's where I'm like,
Yeah. Oh, this is so good, Lori. I just spoke to 2 other practitioners this week who literally almost word for word. It's like the same scenario. Yeah.
In the same boat.
It's all, yes, it's like in the air right now, which is so great. It's, we're coming into spring in the hemisphere where we live. So there's like this newness about it. So check it out. Do you see how not wanting to be generous in sharing for fear that someone might bring up something that's beyond our knowing? Do you see how that's like almost manipulating?
Mm-hmm.
Laura,
yeah.
Laura, it's me. Hi.
Yes. Hello, world.
You the Taylor Swift song. It's me. Hi, that's me. Yeah. We're all in. Yes. So I didn't actually hear your answer, Lori, and I don't mean to press it twice. Do you see how not sharing because we're afraid of what might come from that sharing, meaning they'll ask us a question we don't know the answer to that's beyond our knowing? Do you see how not sharing then is actually like manipulating and being and holding back? Yeah. So totally common, by the way, because we're like, I don't want to look like I can't serve you. I don't want to look like, or I don't want to be the person who can't, and totally get that. Instead, if you could train yourself, I used to do this. I still do actually. Mm-hmm. If you could train yourself to say, oh, they trust me. Because the only reason your clients are coming to you with what seems like a problem you can't solve is because their higher knowing knows that you do know, or that you know where to get the answer.
Well, I do know where to get the answer. It's sort of, I get what just came to me about that was that, like, I've got this certain amount of knowledge, and then they come with something that I don't know. And then it's like, I know this isn't true, but what just came to me was like that I'm so not true. Like a fraud around it. Like I know a certain amount, and then they're like, well, what about X, Y, and Z? And they look to me like, I know this. And I'm like, well, I know this, I don't know this, but I can find the answer to that, or I know somebody that can.
Yeah, I totally get it. So careful on the know somebody who can, because I just had another talk with a different practitioner this week. Stop referring out because you're feeling like you can't stretch there. Lori, this is where I was offering training yourself to, instead of the dialogue, oh, I must be a fraud, which is completely fabricated and made up in your own mind. Okay. If you're going to make up a story, you might as well make up one that feels good.
Right. Yeah.
So in those moments where you're like, oh no, I must be a fraud, instead, instead train yourself to say, they're asking because they trust me.
Right. Yeah. That's so nicer. And it's true.
And it's true. Exactly. Exactly. That's the point. It is true that they trust you. It is not true that you're a fraud. So when you tell yourself something that isn't true, you feel bad because it's because of the lack of truth in it.
Say that one more time. They
saying that you're a fraud isn't true. And the reason you feel bad when you say that you're a fraud isn't because of the truth in it, it's because of the untruth in it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because the truth doesn't hurt. The truth is the truth. It's neutral.
Mm-hmm.
But lies hurt.
Yeah.
So when you say I'm a fraud in that space with your client present, you feel bad, not because you're a fraud, because you just lied to yourself. But they're asking because they trust me is the truth. And notice how you lit up when you were like, it's true. They trust me. That's why they're asking. Do you notice?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So we get to practice telling ourselves either good stories if we don't know they're true or true stories when we know they're true, and stop with the stories that aren't true. The way you can tell if a story is true or not is how you feel when you tell it to yourself.
Yeah. Because I was like, oh, I don't even want to say it. I don't, because it wasn't true and it was a lie.
Right.
So to speak. Yeah.
And lies hurt. Yeah. So when you're digging into shoulders, you're digging into rotator cuff, you're talking about shoulder flexion, and you're like, hey, I know this. I'm going to support people by sharing what I know and implementing, because that builds confidence. And I'm going to talk shoulder flexion right now. And they ask you something just next to that.
Yeah.
Like, ah. Okay. So then you practice saying they're asking because they trust me.
Mm-hmm.
And this is my next place to build confidence in.
Yeah.
And just train yourself to say that. The reason, and the reason why it's so logical to do that is because of what we said already. You're never going to know it all about the body. Me too. We're going to end up at the end of our time here on the planet, and we're not going to know it all. Nobody has so far. Doesn't mean it can't happen, but I'm pretty sure in my lifetime, I'm not going to know it all about the body. I'm just not. And that is actually exciting that I chose the topic that is the most innovative, that will constantly create evolution within me as I explore it. I did a really great job choosing this as my muse. That's awesome. I will never be bored. I will never be bored. That's exciting. And with that comes, I'm never going to know it all, which means there's going to always be the potential of someone asking me a question I don't know the answer to. And I've got to be okay with that, because the excitement of what I chose is that great. Does that support you, Lori?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, good. So do you have another question? You said you had several.
I did have several, and now I can't think of what if I think of it, which I will, I'll come back. I'll circle back around.
No worries. Percolate on that one for a second. Awesome. All right. Any other questions? This is super fun today. I feel like we're diving into deep stuff. We haven't even mentioned the name of a muscle yet. I kind of like it. Are there any other questions? William or 973 or Laura, you guys are all here live with me today, which is delicious. Oh, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 on my clock right now. That means the angels are here. That's exciting to be surrounded by good energy. Any other questions coming up for you guys today on functional anatomy or how to get through confidence? It's such a big topic. It comes up a lot, and I really love it when practitioners are honest with that, with themselves and with me and with whoever they're being mentored by, because confidence is key. You got to be confident to navigate this thing that is so miraculous. Like, who are we? You know, we could turn it into that too, right? Who are we to think we know anything about the body? Well, because we were gifted with one. That's how. Easy math. Absolutely. All right, loves. Any other questions? I would love to pour into you for the next few minutes here. What did you come today hoping to learn? You know, I can riff on anything.
I feel good. I feel like that was one of the things, like the workshop thing and where I'm at, I got some clarity around. Yeah.
Excellent. And how close are you to completing the course, Laura?
I'm on the study break, or the break I'm 1 hour into the torso and core.
Okay.
So how soon am I? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more hours, 6, probably 7 more hours with the test, maybe soon, next couple weeks for sure.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Are you open to me asking you some questions about it?
Sure.
Yeah, because I know exactly the course that you're in, and I'm guessing that everybody else that's here today, or even those watching on the replay, don't know what we're even talking about.
Right, yeah.
Do you want to tell them what the course is exactly?
Yeah, so the course is called Muscles and Movement, and it's the muscles in the body. So you look at joint action. So you've got shoulder joint and hip joint. What else did I do? Right now I'm looking at all the joints of the spine, so many, and the muscles that move those joints and their actions. Right. Yeah, Laura's nodding. Yep. So that's the gist of it. We started with hips and booty, and then there was shoulders. Was it shoulders and something? I think it was just shoulders, and then there's scapula was a separate. I'm in 5, which is torso and core. And then there's what's the last one, Gina? Do you remember?
It'll be a surprise for you when you get there.
Yeah, it's like, I think I want to call it extremities, but I think it's like, I know, right? Like, it felt like, I don't want to say it's random bits, but it's like arms, or I can't remember. I like to stay a moment. Yeah.
Yeah, and so awesome, Lori. So it's muscles and it's how they move. So we know what the muscles are, and then we know how they move. And what would you say is your takeaway so far as a practitioner? So you're a movement practitioner. For those who don't know, Lori is an exceptional movement practitioner. What has been your takeaway? How has that course served you as a movement practitioner? Because you already knew the information when you came into the course.
Right.
How has it served you?
It has, so origin and insertion of the muscles and the muscle fibers, and how the original state, like fixed, if you will, and the insertion goes towards that, and that's what moves the joint, has just been like this, like, I don't want to say it's an eye opener. It feels obvious until it isn't obvious, and then it is obvious. Like, that has seriously changed how I think about movement. Like, we've got, like how you presented it, kind of the big joints, right? The big things that move our bodies. And when I can remember that, and I do remember that, and then think about the muscles that move that, in what way they go, the fibers and the insertion towards the origin to make movement, or just put it that way. It feels really clear. Like, even though some of the muscles aren't clear, like I can't quite remember them all, but the big picture movement on how we move through space, like, that is one of my big ahas.
Awesome. And how has that informed you with your clients and students? What is that knowledge doing for your practice?
It's gotten me much more clear in my language about how I cue things, and it also gets it really succinct. Like, I'm not using, and not that I ever really did use a lot of flourishy words, but I realized that I was using flourishy words because I didn't quite know what was going on. So I would just talk about all these other things instead of just say shoulder flexion, right? One thing. So and as I'm doing that, it's more clear with my students. They're like, oh, that's what everybody's been talking about when they say the flourishy word. That's what they mean. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So no flourishy words, clarity for you creates confidence in you, and the clarity in your messaging creates results for the students that you serve.
Yes. And I'm still trying to get, I want to incorporate in also, like, when to engage a certain muscle to add strength to the action. So that's my like next step, because I really want to get that. And it's not all about the stretch. It's definite. I'm firm believer in the strength too, but it's like, oh, okay, how do I cue that? Well, first, what muscle is it? What joint action am I trying to create? Then what muscle gets to engage to create that strength? Do you see what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We talk about that. That is an awesome next part. We talk about that a lot in mastery.
Mhm.
And for those of you who've been in the functional anatomy masterclass, we talked about that. We did that live last year, and it's available as well. So the formula that I've recognized along the way is that in order for us to create strength in a yogi or in a body that's rehabbing from surgery or injury, or in personal training if someone's reached a plateau, in order for us to create strength, we must have alignment first. Right. Alignment, then strength, then function. That's the functional anatomy formula. And alignment is a two-way street. It's an external alignment, like where are you standing? Where is your foot relative to your shoulder, etc. And it's an internal alignment, which is structural alignment. And that's a deep dive into the method for sure. But in the meantime, we all get to practice our visual assessment skills and knowing what optimal alignment is. Because if our bodies aren't in optimal alignment, we can't access the muscle, even when we know the origins and insertions and the joint action that muscle takes. It won't strengthen if there's a structural misalignment or a postural misalignment. It can't. It can't. It's like in the old days when we used to have rabbit ears on TVs, it's like the signal doesn't come through. Yes, the nervous system is wired to the muscle. I had somebody ask me, like, what are you saying? It's disconnected. No. It's not that it's disconnected. It's that the signal's convoluted because there's the antennas aren't quite pointing in the right position, meaning the body's not quite aligned in the right alignment for the signal to reach the muscle for it to contract. And when we're structurally out of alignment, we have compensatory behaviors happening inside the body that we're not privy to all the time as we're using our visual assessment. The body is compensating for that misalignment. It's got to be doing some heavy lifting to be able to still move when the internal structure is off. And when you bring that equation to the movement table, that's when movement hurts and we can't quite figure out why, or we're moving all the time and we're not getting gains. So the internal alignment matters just as much as the external alignment. And that's really what we use the muscles and movement course for inside the Mastery Practitioner training program, because yes, we get to know how the muscles work. Yes, we get to know how the body's designed, because that's where we're headed, for people to be out of pain. But what happens when muscles go wild? Instead of girls gone wild, muscles gone wild. When things are off, when there's a structural discrepancy, we got to be able to tell what the discrepancy is. And the only way to do that is to compare it to what's supposed to be. It's like what we said earlier, when you know what you don't want, you're clearer to knowing what you do want. When you know how the muscles are designed to work, you can tell more quickly when they're not doing their job. And then when they're not, then what do you do about it? And that's where we get into problem solution. And that, again, is much, as you can tell, it's more than a weekend course could possibly offer, right? It's got to be inside a program. So muscles and movement matter. And they offer, just out of, like you said, Lori, out of the gate, just the clarity on them and what you're looking for and what you're cueing is already a game changer for the people that you serve. And then when they have discrepancies, or they're not gaining strength, or they have pain and discomfort, we still need muscles and movement to take us to the next place with them. It's almost like two different directions, but it's not. It's all the same. It's all the same formula, obviously, with the body. But just knowing what to cue in a healthy, able body without discrepancies or pain is already a place that we get to improve. And then when there's discomfort, discrepancies, and functional stuff going on, we've got to still have that same base foundation to be able to come. It's our come from. It's our come from, and it's where we're headed back to when we return the body back to design. So again, my invitation for you, Lori, is be in the step you're in. It's all good, right? Try not to create that overwhelm, because that's just a choice, and be okay with knowing what you know and still having questions, because we will always have questions as long as we're honest about our evolution. Me too. There's always gaps in my knowledge. I love to fill them. Cool. Yay. Awesome. Lori, I'm so glad. Is there anything else you want to share about muscles and movement for anybody who hasn't yet experienced the course?
If you haven't experienced it, it behooves you to experience it, right? Like if you're a movement practitioner,
Why?
because of everything that I just said. Absolutely. And that it did get me thinking about what you were saying about, getting folks into optimal. And I'm like, well, is that even so adding strength to a misalignment isn't going to move the needle. Right. So, and I'm thinking in a group class, like, does it even, of course it makes sense to explore that with people adding strength, but I don't know if they're going to be, if they've come optimally or if they don't.
Yeah. Well,
right?
that's
where I'm
Well, that's where you get to use the method, right? So here's how that rolls out. So I do know optimal alignment. Obviously, it's what I teach for a living. I can see myself clearly in a mirror. I got it. And I also work my body, right? Like we get to move and not just sit in front of a computer. And I had an internal misalignment that wasn't remedied, which meant that working out, we'll call it working out in quotes, that working out was sometimes effective and sometimes not, and sometimes uncomfortable and sometimes not. And my practitioner, totally present and knowledgeable and amazing, was modifying. That's what we should do when someone's uncomfortable if we don't know what the solution is.
Yep.
When you're talking about group classes and adding strength, if you know that that's what's important, Lori, to add strength, and it is, if you know that that's what's important to add strength, you can absolutely do that in a group setting. And here's how I would do it. Using your muscle knowledge and your alignment knowledge, bring everybody as if they were fully functional and able. And those who are will absolutely benefit from what you're doing in the moment. You'll see it, they'll feel it, and the results will be obvious. And for those who have a functional discrepancy or a misalignment, they won't have the same response. They'll feel like how I felt. On the outside, I was aligned, but something wasn't working because my body was saying, no, that doesn't work. I'm uncomfortable. And the practitioner was like, but you're aligned. Your leg's in the right place. Your back's in the right place. You're doing all the things. But my body was like, something's not in the right place. So the body will tell you really clearly. And that's when you offer for that particular client, I have something for you that's different than this group class. And I would like to explore that with you because I think there's something else going on. And that's when you walk them through the measurements and find out if there's a misalignment. Here's what happens though. You got to know what to do about that. If you were to take them out of the group class and you measure them and you know that their measurements reveal something, that's a muscles gone wild, that's a muscles gone wild circumstance. I don't know what the word is I'm looking for here. I still don't know what the word is. It's when you do measure them and you find out that they have misalignments, something's off, and now you get to do something about it to resolve it for them. So confirming it is great. Like, oh yeah, your sacrum's off, or your joints of your spine are presenting it in a certain way. That's what we learn in the method for sure. And then what you do about it is back to the same formula. Knowing one thing and then implementing what you know is the next step. And so the good news about our community is that if you do forget and you do measure somebody and you're like, oh my gosh, these measurements and muscles gone wild, this is what's going on. What do I do about that again? Well, you come back and we just all sort it out together, right? So I think that practitioners can take themselves out of the game for being really supportive to somebody who really deserves their support, who found their way to your class, by the way, because they knew you'd have the answer. We take ourselves out of the game because of the conversation we had earlier. I don't want to find something that I don't know how to solve, so I'm just going to hold back and not do it.
Oh, look at that, came full circle.
Oh, look at that. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And so for folks who, there's always a transition period in our program for people who've been teaching group classes for a long time. And then how do you work one-on-one with someone and measure them? And then for people who've been working one-on-one in a certain way, and how do you transition them to do this different thing when it's such an intimate, like concentrated way of working and you've got time behind it. So there's always a transition that happens. There was for me too, when I started implementing my method. I still have clients from, like 20 some years ago that call me and they're like, you're changed. Like, yes, I did. You're like, they expect what they expect if you've had it with them a certain way. So you get to message with them around all of that. But the point is, one of the ways that we create that transition in the program is when you teach group classes, you get to offer maybe first 5 minutes before the class starts or the last 5 minutes after the class ends or both, that you're going to measure people. You're going to use the SHOTS method measurements. You're going to measure them and you're just going to rapid fire, get them in and get them out and just find out what the measurements are, which could lead you to teach the class differently if it's before the class. And it could also inform what you're going to do one-on-one with someone if they really know it. The work that I needed done to my body was one-on-one work so that I could go back to that workout environment, which I still do 3 times a week. But now I do it without pain and discomfort because my measurements were addressed and remedied. Otherwise, I was taking that same class for over a year before my measurements were remedied because I didn't get measured. I could have continued to take that class with all those modifications for another 10 years, fine, and not had any gains and had some discomfort and maybe had some other places in my life where I couldn't really navigate. And that's literally the opposite of what we want for our clients. So I needed to be measured and I needed my measurements to be remedied, and that had to happen one-on-one so I could go back to the group class that I was working with. And sometimes that's the way it is. And am I happy about that? I'm over the moon. Would your clients be happy about that? They would sing your praises till the end of their time here. I'm sure of it. You bring someone back into the full experience of their body in a pain-free experience. I was not commented on. That's the wrong way of saying it. 3 people that same week commented on how my energy changed. Because I had just a low-grade chronic freaking discomfort that I could not get to go away. And the more I worked out, believe it or not, it was making it worse. I need to move my body, and I was out of alignment, which means I was actually perpetuating an injury inside of me by working out. Not working out would have not been the answer, but working out was coming up against a discrepancy. And that low-grade discomfort was noticeable to people. And the reason I know that is because when it went away, they all commented. So we want that for ourselves. We want that for our clients, and it's totally doable. And it was like quick, super quick for it to get resolved. Yeah. Okay, awesome. Lori, thank you for sharing on muscles and movement. I'm really glad that you're diving in. I'm celebrating you for doing it solo. You don't have to, but I love that you're diving in and doing it. I love that it's creating the results for you in the way you're teaching and that your students are drinking all that in. And I can't wait to hear what happens the next time you add strength and then find out that you get to measure people and what they get to receive from you next.
Next level. Yep.
It's going to be so delicious.
It is. Yeah, it totally is. Thank you.
All right. Awesome. Super awesome shares, Lori. Thank you for all of your shares today. Appreciate it. I appreciate all of you being here. We just have a couple minutes left. Are there any other last minute questions before we wrap up for today? Laura, you got anything? No. Just here present and drinking it all in today. I love it. Okay, great. Well, I want to acknowledge all of you for taking the time, whether you're here live or on the replay, for taking the time to create more skill and more confidence in yourself so that you can continue to serve the people who deserve you and they're lucky to have you. They may not know what you're doing in this hour, but I know what you're doing in this hour. And I want to acknowledge you for that, because as we continue to pour into ourselves, we have more to pour into them. So they are super lucky to have you. Even if they don't say it, they know it. And that's why they find their way to you. And everyone who does find their way to you knows that you have the answer or knows that you know where to get the answer. So just continue to remember that. Try not to let it throw you off if somebody asks you a question that's outside of your current knowing. It's just because they trust you to find it. They trust that it's the next thing for you. One of the things that I know from in leadership training is that we create everything. We either create exactly what we want, or we create whatever's in the way of what we want so that we can see what's in the way. So if your clients are asking you a question that you don't know, you've created that for you to see what's next for you in your next cut for learning and knowledge as a practitioner. So let it just be oh, cool, thanks for that. That was a gift. Thank you for showing me that. I love it. And I love each of you for being here. Thank you for all of the commitment that you have to our industry and for rising us all up. Please do feel free to invite anybody that you know who could be served by this message to either come join us live or to watch on the replay. Everybody's welcome. I'm here every Tuesday for the rest of this year. And more goodness to come next week. Have an awesome week, you guys. Continue to do great work in the world. Bye for now.